All right. Well, Guido, you have been busy with the Language Summit recently, right? What's the news there?
Yes. Well, normally the Language Summit basically is an in-person meeting where about 50 people who are mostly, but not exclusively, core devs get together a day or two before the actual Python conference.
Right. This would
Since the
have been
conference
in
was
Pittsburgh,
canceled,
right?
it would have been in Pittsburgh this year, right? Uh, Obviously, the conference was canceled and the Language Summit was too. And then the two organizers thought, well, okay, this sounds like the kind of meeting that we can actually try to do on Zoom. You can't have a whole conference on Zoom, but you can probably have a meeting with 50 people on Zoom. And they tweaked the format a bit so that, I mean, you can't be on Zoom for an entire day. I find Zoom incredibly intense, and I'm after an hour of Zooming, I'm usually ready for a break.
Yeah.
And
All
so
the
they
virtual
broke it
stuff
up in
takes a
two
lot
days.
more attention. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I don't know that user interface sucks. Privacy probably sucks, but it clearly serves its purpose. So we had it spread over 2 different days. And then in addition, because nobody was traveling to Pittsburgh, we spread it out in time. One day it was really early for me so that we could also have participants from Europe. And one day it was really late for me so that we could have some people from Australia join us. One of the organizers lives in Poland, and he was there till the end on both days. So I don't know
That's commitment.
how he slept. Yeah, so as usual, the format wasn't actually all that different. It's typically like half-hour slots for various topics that are sort of important to either get information to core devs and usually also get feedback from core devs. And we pretty much stuck to that format. The one big thing that you miss, of course, is all the sort of whispering to the guy who was sitting next to you, or during the break, quickly grabbing 3 other people and having a little huddle about a topic.
Yeah. That's what's so powerful
yeah.
about in-person conferences.
So yeah, we missed the entire hallway track, but it was still good to have sort of short presentations and Q&A sessions. And the Q&A sessions actually worked really well. There was a little tool that you can use to sort of moderate questions. And Lukasz was like running the moderation tool, and nobody was asking spam questions, so all he had to do was just click OK for every question, I think. But that tool is much more structured than the chat channel on Zoom could be, and sort of raising your hand on Zoom and waving doesn't really work if there are 50 people, because there's no way to see more than 16 people or so at a time. So anyway, the first day, each day there were like maybe 5 topics and a few miscellaneous things. Shall I just go over each day briefly?
I would say just maybe touch really quickly on just the things that you felt like really might make an impact going forward, potentially.
Okay, yeah. Well, so just a one-liner, the guy who originally implemented f-strings gave a talk about whether maybe all strings should become f-strings, and the general sentiment was that would have been nice in Python 1.0 or so, but there's no way it would just break too much code.
It's going to break too much.
So,
I totally hear that though, because I'm typing in a string. I'm like, oh, I need to put a variable here, but I've typed 20 characters in. Then I got to go back to the beginning, but not the beginning of the line, because maybe that's with it. I got to get to the beginning of the string and then go. Maybe we could even put the F at the end. Who knows? But yeah, I would love to see it, but I totally understand you can't do that without breaking stuff.
I mean, there are downsides to automatically doing it too, because curly braces are useful for all sorts of things besides formatting. So that was sort of the opening salvo. Then my two co-conspirators on the peg parsing project gave a talk about how we're going to hopefully introduce a new parser in Python 3.9. And we've been coding for like almost a year now, probably. It started out as a little hobby project of mine and gradually became more serious and more people started helping out. And the last few months, we've been doing heavy engineering work to actually prepare for the integration. But we didn't have steering council approval yet. We made it a PEP and we sort of said, well, this is a nice thing, but we're not going to do this unless there is sort of clear consensus, or at least general agreement that we are going to do this. And so very soon after the summit, the steering council actually had a meeting and approved a bunch of PEPs, and ours was one of them. And then the last 2 days, I've been stressing out because we wanted to get the new parser in the Alpha 6 release, which is going out tomorrow. And so we're now in the very last stretches of preparing for Alpha 6, and we're just deleting or disabling tests that are still failing that we know how to fix them, but we just don't have the time.
Right. That's exciting that this project's going to be in there. That's great.
Yeah, so that's the new parser, and if all goes well, nobody will notice a thing.
So what are the effects? Is it going to speed things up or make things more maintainable, or?
It's going to sort of open up the grammar for future changes to the language that we currently can't do because the old LL1 parser holds us back.
Okay.
That's sort of the main motivation.
Super.
There was one interesting talk about something called HPy, which is a proposal for a new, more portable API, and in particular focused on other Python implementations besides CPython. As you may know, PyPy has been struggling for over a decade with compatibility with extension modules. And the HPy proposal is basically, instead of pointers to objects, you have handles, which is a pointer to an object. And there's a whole sort of API around handles that is equivalent to the existing API, but it allows different styles of garbage collection. For example, you could implement a garbage collector that moves objects behind your back.
Right. You might get a generational compacting garbage collector because you could update the value of the pointer without changing the actual pointer, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's actually really exciting.
Yeah, and it's still in early stages, I believe, but it looks pretty promising. Eric Snow gave a lightning talk about sort of a retrospective of all his work on multi-core support, which is now beginning to conclude. Well, maybe it's too soon to call it a conclusion, but we're going to have sub-interpreters with a much better API, either in 3.9 or in 3.10. There's a PEP around that, 554, which will definitely be moving forward. But whether it's considered mature enough to land in 3.9 is not entirely clear. So
Eric's work is very interesting there.
Yeah, and so in 3.10 we will probably have separate guilds per sub-interpreter.
Oh wow!
And that is going to be a major new thing. Let's see, what else do we have? Well, so the next day I gave a talk about the future of typing, which, there's one detail. You might remember that we introduced something called from Dunder future import annotations, which made it so that annotations are no longer evaluated at runtime. You can still introspect them, but you'll just get the string containing the annotation expression back. Well, that's going to be the default in 3.9 most likely. There's still a little debate about that, but there was like a 2/3 preference for just making that the default in 3.9. And various people argued effectively that nobody should notice any difference.
I'm really excited or happy to have typing in the language as it makes such a difference for the right use case. On defining the boundary of APIs or making the editor understand something better when it otherwise wouldn't.
If you're maintaining tens of thousands of lines of Python code or more, type annotations really make a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
I still don't recommend teaching them to beginners though.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and the sort of, I mean, it depends on what kind of beginners you have. I mean, if they're sort of recuperating Java programmers, maybe you should introduce them. But if they're like actually blank slate, this is the first time they're programming ever, I wouldn't bother with them with annotations.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. What's sort of still missing for the data science world is extensions to the type system for NumPy and pandas and stuff like that. And there's a design, but there are not enough people with available time to actually implement the design. And I'm sure that when you're halfway through implementation, all sorts of interesting issues with the design will prop up. So the design is not final until it's been implemented.
Thank you for watching this segment of the Python Bytes podcast. This video was made during the recording of the full episode. Visit pythonbytes.fm and get the whole story. Subscribe to the podcast and get the entire episode delivered to your phone. Please support our work by taking one of the courses at pythonbytes.fm/courses or learning PyTest with Brian's book at pythonbytes.fm/PyTest. Finally, visit our sponsor shown on the screen here. Visit the link on the screen and get the special offer for Python Bytes and YouTube listeners. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.